Welcome to my channel. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Now let's go start.
Screencast keys are on here so you can watch what's going on down here in the bottom right. You'll see a lot of little mouse clicking. 5, 6, 7. Anyways, so we've got our circle there. I'm going to use that to create this first package. And I'm just going to go up a little bit, something like that. I'm pressing E to extrude. And I knew I was underwater. I just didn't realize I was this underwater. Then let's give this a little thickness. Let's press E, scale inwards a little bit. And then I'll just go up a little more. Easy. And this is going to be just to kind of create that lip where you would see, the threading. We're not going to be modeling that though. So I'm just giving this a little bit of a taper. Sometimes kind of having this, little details like that can help to really increase the, realism of this whole thing. Especially when you're working with something like glass. So with all that there, I was going to try to, it's looking like a little bit, I kind of want to make all this a little bit bigger. So S, Shift Z, let's move that out maybe a little bit, just so that the glass isn't quite so thick on the edge. We want to be nice and environmentally friendly here, not too much extra material. So pressing F to fill that face in, and then I'll do the same thing down here. F to fill it in, but maybe what I'll do is press I to inset it a little bit. And again, this is just another little detail. E to extrude up. We scale that in a little bit, something like that. It's just kind of a nice detail sometimes you see. Okay, so that's there. That's going to be the bottom of our package. But like with anything in 3D, we really don't want these edges to be totally totally sharp. We want them to be a little rounded. And the way I'm going to do that is with a bevel modifier. So let's go ahead and add that bevel modifier. It's going to apply that bevel everywhere, and I don't want that. So I'm going to use this angle limit method, which will mean that only angles greater than this value set here will get that bevel value. So let's bring that bevel value down a little bit. Don't need it to be quite so fat. And maybe we can bump up the segments a little bit. Something like 3, I think is going to be good. And another reason we're adding this bevel modifier is so that when we add a subdivision surface modifier, we can retain those edges. So the bevel modifier kind of adds edge loops. Normally you have to go in and press Control R when you do a subdivision surface to, create an edge loop like that and keep those edges nice and tidy. But the bevel modifier in this case is kind of doing that for us. Now we just shade that smooth, and we have pretty much the basis for our first shape here. Now I will go ahead and add just a little more detail. I think down here I'm just going to
And just get a nice little cap shape. Now, if this was a real cap, it would be hollowed on the inside, but we're really not going to see that, so we're really not going to worry about it. Now, to get the tube part, we're going to make that as a separate object. I'm going to press Shift A and add a circle. But for this circle, instead of using 32 vertices, which is, I think, the plural of vertex, it's not vertexes, and then a single one isn't vertice. No. I'm sure somebody will correct me in the comments. I'm just going to use 8. Well, that's an object, and it's not going to look circular at all. But by the time we add the subdivision surface modifier, we're going to have quite a circle. And there's going to be some other things going on with this geometry-wise that I want to model pretty low poly, but I'm going to have the subdivision surface modifier take care of smoothing out. So if we start with 32 vertices here and then add all that subdivision, it would be just too much. So I'm just going to start with 8 instead. So I'm going to scale it in a little bit. And let's just bring it up here. And let's press F to fill it in. And we can probably go ahead and add that subdivision surface because I want to make sure that that circle is about the right size. So we only start with 8, so we can actually use like 4 subdivisions there. I think that's going to be pretty good. Let's just bring that down. And I'm going to press E to extrude it up. And then I'm going to go to whatever height you like. And then I'm going to press S and X to bring it out. And now you can see we have a very realistic floating tube there. This is a sci-fi tutorial. I'm just kidding. We got some problems with that. Okay, so we want to add in our, we could use the bevel modifier to control this, but I'm just gonna do it the old-fashioned way. Add an edge loop there. And then on that bottom face, just to get, so that we don't have a rounding in so much, I'm gonna press I to inset that and just bring that in a little notch. And now we have kind of a nice little lip there. Maybe if you're thinking that's a little bit too small, we could scale it out just a tad. Good to go. And now, if that's the shape you want, see and have at it. That's all you. But, I want to make this a little more of like a little more of this shape. Whatever the heck you call that. Oops, I need to go Alt-Z to make sure I'm selecting everything here. Maybe scale that in just a little bit. And, okay, we're getting there. Let's maybe now scale this on the y-axis in a little bit. Yeah, now we're talking. And now I don't want this to be so sharp here on the edge, so maybe let's X that, bring it in. That's looking a little bit better. And yeah, that's good. Let's maybe add one more edge loop. I'm just going to do that by selecting this top face, extruding it upwards. And then maybe this edge loop we can like scale in a little bit. Maybe this one scales in too. SY. Just to give it that nice little kind of flat part at the top. And you could add that kind of crinkle texture. Sometimes you see on tubes like that. But gotta save some stuff for you guys to do. So with that all in place, now this is very, if you have enough money to hire Anastasia to do your branding, you don't want to be giving your customers like no product. So the way we're going to give them some more product is with a little bit of edge loop action. Let's scale this out on the y-axis. Oh yeah, just load it up. That thing is full, filled to the brim. You're getting your money's worth, which you're going to need to be getting your money's worth. You got to sell a lot of product to afford such beautiful branding. Anyways, okay, that looks good. Maybe I want it to be like flared out just a little bit more up here. Let's scale that out. Maybe scale that out a little bit. Oh yeah, real nice. Do whatever you want. Make whatever shape you want. You could do. Look at that. It's innovation right there. Okay, I don't want that. Leave it alone there. Okay, so that's going to be the second shape there. We'll just pop that guy over there. And then now for the next shape, we're going to do pretty much the same thing we did here. But since there are some destructive elements here, well, let's see here. We can use the same pieces. Let's do it again. Let's go wild. So Shift D, X, bring that over there, separated by selection. Oops, and now our origin's kind of off. So let's set origin to geometry, which should snap it right to the center of that circle. Looking good. Don't need that to be quite as big. Let's press S, scale it down a little bit. Something about like that. Well, scale by 0.5. Let's keep it nice and even. I think that looks good. Let's extrude this up to somewhere about there. And maybe, do we want this whole thing to be a little bigger? Seems kind of small. Let's S Shift Z to scale on the other axes. Something like that I think looks good. Okay, so that's there. Let's go ahead and fill in that bottom face, and then let's build out this shape very similarly to the way we did the other one. Press E to extrude. S to scale it in just a little bit. E, Z. I think that looks pretty good. And then E, extrude it inwards, scale that down. And then my X-frame, I want to bring this down. And then I'm going to end up rounding this edge too, so I'm going to make sure I leave myself plenty of space. Scale that out, easy. And then let's leave some extra glass at the bottom. We're talking high end. Here. We can afford a little extra. That's good. Now let's do some of the same tricks we did before on this one to give ourselves those rounded details. Let's press Ctrl B and just bevel that a little bit. I think that looks good. Maybe not so much. This is destructive, so once I get out of this command, we are locked in. That's good right there. Let's Control B this too. Just kind of want to match what I'm seeing on the other one there. Branding. I want things to be consistent. I want things to match. And then maybe on this inside, let's get crazy. Don't they? I just feel alive. Jira is now for all teams, especially marketing teams waiting on final engineering updates so they can they do this. I don't know why they do that. Maybe, actually, maybe it's because it's a taller container, so they need extra weight from the glass on the bottom. Maybe it is a design decision. So now, I'm not liking how much extra glass we have at the top there, so I'm going to try to grab that ring, bring it up, give myself a little more than I needed. Okay, something like that's good. And now, since the bevel modifier and everything's already on there, we've got nice rounded edges there as well. So let's shade that smooth. And let's call that one done. Well, we need to have the other pieces, of course. So let's do a little more vertex theft. Is that what we're calling it? Let's actually just grab the one inside loop here, not that one. Alt, left click. There we go. Shift D, duplicate it. P to separate by selection. Just find it somewhere in there. It's hard to see. Okay. And then we are going to just, EZ to extrude that up, something like that, and press F to make a face. And for this one, instead of actually modeling it, we will use the solidify modifier here. So we can leave those modifiers on, but let's add a solidify. And let's pop it right on up here to the tippity top. And then we'll bring the thickness up. We do have this option for even thickness, which gets rid of that uneven thickness, I guess is the way it would be. I don't know why. It's like something about the way the normals are or something. It doesn't make it even, but you get a little checkbox. I wish my whole render had make even checkbox. Like, some things aren't looking good. Let's just make it all even. All right, so I'm going to delete that face, and what I'm creating here is just kind of a little hole for my little pipette thing to go down. I think that's what it's called, pipette. This, by the way, is the face oil container, which after Anastasia sent over the branding things, I had to look up what face oil is. We had kind of talked a little bit about what the container shapes would be, but I searched face oil and they all have this little thing. So I was like, guess we're doing the little face oil pipette. So let's bring that in maybe just a little bit more. And then now let's do it again, boys. Let's steal some geometry, boys and girls. Shift D, separate by selection. And then, okay, so this will be, let's make the little thing that goes down first. And that's great that we copied from this object because it already has a solidify modifier. We can ditch the bevel and the subdivide though, because this is, I already know you're really not going to be able to see this, but let's bring this down. Easy, we scale in, easy. This is just like that little kind of dropper tube. Maybe we adjust the thickness there a little bit. And now, again, not really going to see it, but let's shade that smooth, and then so that we don't have this weird shading on the bottom, we can turn on auto smooth here in the normals. Yeah, and that's just gonna smooth that out a little bit. So I'll keep the sharp part sharp is what it's doing. So that's in there. Liking the way it looks. I really am. And we just need to add that last little piece. There's probably a couple other pieces that go in here, but, you aren't gonna see them, so we aren't gonna model them. Let's take this geometry here, Shift D, duplicate it, P, separate by selection. Now the reason I keep just using the geometry in the place it is, the reason I keep pulling the geometry instead of adding a new circle is because I just know it's going to add it right there because it's copying it from right there. So, it just makes things a little bit more convenient. For this top one, we can leave the bevel. Let's actually, let's leave the bevel and we'll leave the bevel and the subdivide. Don't need the solidify though. I mean, realistically, this thing would have some thickness, but, you're not going to see it, so we're not going to do it. The client will never know. Which, by the way, clients, somebody go out there and get yourself a cosmetics product rendering gig after they watch this tutorial. I'm not kidding. I mean, we're going to be making some top-notch 3D product shots here. And, you can legitimately go and use these skills to make yourself thousands of dollars, maybe millions, hundreds of thousands. Maybe we'll settle on hundreds of thousands. If you make $1 million, let me know. If you make $10 by, selling these services, for one, you need to charge more. And for two, I want to hear your story and share it on my channel about how you made $10 with this tutorial. So let's press Control S to save. My God, that's terrifying. I hadn't saved anything yet. Don't forget to save. Would have to redo all that again, as if I have already recorded this tutorial 5 times. Okay, so we have that there. That's all good. The last part of the model is the box, but it's pretty easy, and you guys are probably really tired of doing modeling. You're like, let's move on to the next part, please, Derek. So let's move on to the next part. Let's just kind of tighten these all up so that while I am setting up some materials, which is what we'll do next, maybe materials on, well, I guess we'll do some lighting first. Just so that they're all in one place, and we'll move them around again after. Probably parent them to some empties. Don't want to give away too much. Let's press 0 to go on our camera view. 0 on the number pad, by the way. And I'm just going to shift tilde to fly this into a nice little position. And let's save again. And then let's pull out our view here. This is kind of how I like to do it. So this I like to keep as a 3D view. I'll kind of place the lights over here in the scene. And then over here it's going to be rendered. And then up here is where we will actually set up some materials. So got that set up the way I like. Let's pop this into a rendered view. Now we could do this look dev and Eevee, but I'm just going to go straight to cycles because here it's going to be rendered. And then up here is where we will actually set up some materials. So got that set up the way I like. Let's pop this into a rendered view. Now we could do this look dev and Eevee, but I'm just going to go straight to cycles because looks good. I like cycles. Let's turn off the overlay so we don't have that grid there. And let's add in a little bit of a floor. Something like that. Maybe scale it out a little bit. And then let's make it a seamless backdrop. Extrude that up. Pop a bevel on that bad boy. Something like that. Actually, I could use a bevel modifier for that because sometimes I do end up wanting to adjust it. But we created it pretty quick. Which, by the way, history facts. My first tutorial was showing how to create seamless backdrop just like that one. I showed 3 different ways, and obviously you now know which way was my favorite because I still use it. So that's good there. Now, there are these little corners you can click and drag this out, but for some reason that has been crashing Blender for me, so not going to do it. But I'll make it a little bit bigger this way. Actually, let's make this a disc. I like discs. Let's pop that power up a little bit. Sometimes because your renders, they're dark. It's like you're trying to save power. I mean, watch this. 600 bajillion thousand. Didn't cost me anything. Turn your lights up, guys. Let's pop that to like 1,000. And let's maybe make it a little bit bigger. You could use an HDRI for that, and that would make things a little bit maybe more realistic. Maybe, but you wouldn't have as much control. I don't know. There's some point many years ago, not years ago, probably months ago, where I was like, I need to flex my lighting skills more. So you know what I did? Made the adult decision to stop using HDRIs. And you know what happened? My lighting skills got so much better. So yeah, consider saving a life today. Don't use HDRIs. I'm just kidding. HDRIs are great. They're really easy. It's like HDRI is like, people who are new to Blender don't know about HDRIs and they're noobs. And then you get better and you learn about HDRIs and then you're like a pro. And then you get to God level 3D, which is where I'm at. Okay, I'm not cocky, but yeah, for real. Then you stop using HDRIs. That's when you're a cool guy. It's when you can just do the lighting like this. You just kind of bust it out, which, by the way, I know I'm just talking a lot while I'm doing this, but this is how Derek does his lighting. It's not that complicated. I think it's called 3-point lighting. Just blast it with some light from the back. We're going to have to adjust this a little bit probably once we, set our scene up a little bit more, but for now, I think that this is going to do us pretty well. We just want something to work with while we set up our materials. So yeah, enough with the lights. Let's set up those materials. Okay, so I think the first thing I'll set up is going to be just this ground plain color. And I do have loaded in here a little texture. Make this a UV image editor since we're going to use UVs later. And now, for some reason in 2.8, there's image editor and UV image editor or UV editor. It used to be called the UV image editor. But anyways, so Anastasia sent me some texture, or she sent me kind of Illustrator files. I'll throw them up on the screen here of each label. And what I did is kind of combine those all into an 8K texture that I could use. I just kind of added, I kind of gave myself some extra white space, kind of extended these edges a little bit. And that's just so that there's a little bit of room to overlap. So when I'm placing my UVs, I don't have to worry about getting right on the edge and then, things clipping weird. So I got that little texture set up, and I can also use this to pick some colors. So let's create a new material. We'll call this material floor because it's going to be a floor, and we'll probably use it for those little boxes too. we are going to create the boxes. I know you're dying to know how. They're cubes. But we'll use the same material, but we can still call it floor. So let's just pick this material right here. And color is always kind of funky, like this color, and then what you see in the render, because you got things like your filmic and your contrast, and I usually amount of high contrast, by the way, just because I just like it. It looks better, I think. So sometimes you need to play with the color a little bit, maybe get it a little more saturated. Just kind of spice this up. She did give me freedom to adjust the colors a little bit if I needed to. So I am taking that freedom. Now for this, since I want it to be pretty flat color, I'm going to bump the specular down a little bit, and then we'll turn the roughness up a little bit, and we'll save. That looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and let's set up that glass material. So let's click right there, which I know is going to be glass, and we'll call that glass. And what else with that? Okay, so the transmission is going to be all the way up. I know that. We can do that. And then let's see, what else? Okay, for the purposes of seeing what's going on in the viewport, I am going to adjust the viewport display color to have a lower alpha value so that we can see through it and see that pipette in there, which is also going to get the glass material. So that's in there. This, let me make glass too. And now for this glass material, you can kind of do whatever you want. I like to turn this index of refraction down a little bit, which maybe isn't quite as realistic, but makes it a little easier to see through. We'll just leave it like a 1.3. So yeah, not necessarily as realistic. And then roughness, I'll crank it up pretty high. I want this to be like kind of a nice frosted glass. And yeah, it's going to look really dark in there because there's not much in there just yet. It just doesn't look good at first, but don't worry about it. Let's actually put some stuff in there. That's one step we forgot to do. So let's, the way I'm going to do that, I'm going to tab into edit mode here. Let's select that bottom face. Okay. And then we have a special command, not that face. I want to select these, oh, you know what? I wanted to put a little bevel on the bottom there. Let's control B that bad boy. Oh. Okay. Control B. Don't go crazy. Oh, why are you going crazy? Let's scroll down my mouse so I don't get quite so many segments. Okay, so I got that. So yeah, with that there, I want to, so that is the glass object I'm editing. So what I can do is click the bottom and I can press Control plus. Plus starts with P. Interesting. Control plus to grow that selection. So now I can select the interior, because if you didn't do it that way, you kind of have to like remove the lid and it would just be kind of hard to select all that. So I want to press Shift D with that selection and then press P to separate it by selection. And then now I have a new material in there. Okay. So yeah. So this is what's going to end up being kind of what's inside the container. So let's just kind of shrink it down a little bit. Delete those vertices. Press F to make that a face. And it should get the bevel. Yeah, it does get the bevel modifier. That's fine. Really not going to see much of that. And so since I duplicated it, it's got the glass material. And now one thing I am going to do is just, with all that selected, I'm going to scale it down a little bit, just so that these edges aren't hitting each other. Sometimes when they do, it can create some kind of weird effects, when there's kind of like zero geometry. So we like to leave that a little bit inset, so that it's kind of floating in there a little bit. And for that material, let's just make it let's give it a new material. That's not the glass. So let's just remove that. Let's give it a new material. We'll call this a cream. It's going to be the cream. And we'll give that not much roughness. We will give it a lot of brightness. Okay, why are we looking so dark in there? What's going on here? Okay, so that is it out of the container. This is the container. Roughness, transmission, alpha. We could turn the alpha down to make that a little more transparent. But you know, I think when we add in all the lighting and stuff, it's going to look fine. Maybe what we need to do. Okay, so I know for the glass, we want to turn up we need to turn this color up a little bit so that it's all the way bright. Okay, so that's going to make it a little bit more transparent. Let's go in our camera view here. Now, what else can we do here? We can We can make it, maybe we need to make it a glass so it's not so thick. Or maybe just turn down that index to refraction value a little bit. Messing with glass is kind of difficult. Yeah, let's just turn this index to refraction down a lot. And that's going to help us. You know, if it's 1, it's basically like straight up see-through, which we don't want that. Like, that's it at 1. So there's still some effects going on there, which that does help us see through a lot, but I'm just going to bump it up so that we do have some refraction going on to, something like that. And, you know, maybe this isn't the realistic value, but it helps give us the look we're going for. And, you know, why using 3D software if you want everything to be realistic anyways? We'll be a photographer. And then it's all real. No hate on photographers, by the way. So we got that there. That's the cream inside there. And, you know, maybe this outer, maybe we make this glass kind of a little bit of a creamy color. So with transparent stuff, the effect really gets super multiplied. So let's turn that saturation down. We want this almost white and we want the value all the way up so it's pretty clear. Okay. Yeah, I think that looks good. Maybe just a little more saturation. Maybe we bring the value down just a tad. Make it a little bit darker. Now let's leave it up. Okay. I think that's good. We'll leave it at that. And then now, the Chartered Financial Analyst designation. We do need to also create some liquid to go in here. Again, subtle effect, but that's what we're about here. Control plus to grow that selection. Shift D. P to separate my selection. See if we can grab it in there. Okay. And then let's make a face here on the top. Nice, nice. And then maybe we move the whole thing. I know I could probably just move it down, but I'm going to do an edge loop just in case there's a little taper in there. Let's delete that and then F to fill that in. Nice. So that'll be our face oil in there. So let's maybe move it out a little bit so we can see what we're working on here. By the way, if you want to isolate an area for your render, you can press Control B and that will create a little box there that's a preview area. So we do want similar properties to the glass. I'm going to add a new material and I'm going to name that, we'll just name that liquid. And that is going to have no roughness, or maybe like a little bit of roughness. And we'll make the index of refraction something maybe a little more realistic for that. Yeah, I think that's it for the liquid. Maybe just so we can see in the viewport a little bit better. Let's give it kind of a color. And then let's move that back in and see how it looks. And then Control B again. There's a command to like clear the render border, but I usually just do Control B on the whole thing. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Yeah, is there anything else? For some reason this glass is bothering me. Like, do I need to adjust this more? Maybe move it down. Let's just go. Okay, let's do how it is. I think that's like kind of realistic. When we actually render it, it might look a little bit better. But let's leave it at that. If you do download the Patreon file, by the way, and we want the value all the way up so it's pretty clear. Okay. Yeah, I think that looks good. Maybe just a little more saturation. Maybe we bring the value down just a tad. Make it a little bit darker. Now let's leave it up. Okay. I think that's good. We'll leave it at that. And then now, the Chartered Financial Analyst designation. We do need to also create some liquid to go in here. Again, subtle effect, but that's what we're about here. Control plus to grow that selection. Shift D. P to separate my selection. See if we can grab it in there. Okay. And then let's make a face here on the top. Nice, nice. And then maybe we move the whole thing. I know I could probably just move it down, but I'm going to do an edge loop just in case there's a little taper in there. Let's delete that and then F to fill that in. Nice. So that'll be our face oil in there. So let's maybe move it out a little bit so we can see what we're working on here. By the way, if you want to isolate an area for your render, you can press Control B and that will create a little box there that's a preview area. So we do want similar properties to the glass. I'm going to add a new material and I'm going to name that, we'll just name that liquid. And that is going to have no roughness, or maybe like a little bit of roughness. And we'll make the index of refraction something maybe a little more realistic for that. Yeah, I think that's it for the liquid. Maybe just so we can see in the viewport a little bit better. Let's give it kind of a color. And then let's move that back in and see how it looks. and then Control B again. There's a command to like clear the render border, but I usually just do Control B on the whole thing. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Yeah, is there anything else? For some reason this glass is bothering me. Like, do I need to adjust this more? Maybe move it down. Let's just go. Okay, let's see how it is. I think that's like kind of realistic. When we actually render it, it might look a little bit better. But let's leave it at that. If you do download the Patreon file, by the way, you'll have the you'll have everything you saw in the intro. So that's going to be a little more complete. We'll be able to see exactly what I did there, but again, we are trying to replicate that. So for these caps, let's go ahead and name the material. Which, by the way, I didn't name anything over here. Probably should have, but hey, it's just us working right now. If you're going to send this to someone, you definitely would want to make sure things are named. So that's going to be our metallic cap. We just want to turn the metalness factor all the way up. And then I'm just going to viewport display color so that when I apply it here, I can successfully see that it has applied. Now I don't want this, don't want that color, so I'm going to use this color. Pick it, adjust it a little bit. You know, maybe you want a little more saturation in there. Something like that, make it a little rosier. So make sure to save. Anytime you're working with, intensive things, you want to make sure you're saving. Let's turn the roughness down a little bit, make it nice and shiny. Don't cost nothing. Not that much roughness. We'll do 0.3. And then maybe let's bring the value down a little bit, kind of make it like a darker color. And then maybe the saturation can come down a little bit too. Again, just trying to keep everything on brand here. That looks good. And then maybe for this, we do, let's just actually make that the same as the cream material so we can cut down on materials. So let's just name it white now. And the roughness maybe is, we'll just leave it at 0.5 since in there, you know, you don't really see it. And then we can also then use that same material right here for this cap. So let's make that the white as well. Specular looks good. Make sure nothing got too changed there. Keep the values high. Okay. I think we're in good shape. We'll leave that 0.5 roughness. You know, this would technically be like a rubbery material, so maybe you'd want more roughness, but I think it looks good. And now we just have, you know, one less material in our growing stack of materials. So let's go ahead now and I think we'll go ahead and put some labels on these. So the way I'm going to do that is, again, theft of geometry. Let's take we don't even have to. Let's add a wireframe view here. So we're not, okay. Wait, I'm in. Okay, the reason I can see through it is because it's clear in the viewport, which now if we select, is that going to get the backside then? Okay, so even though it's clear in the viewport, it still knows, since we're not in X-ray mode, to not select the backside. So let's just, you know what I could do? I could probably select these, and then if I Control plus, no, because it's going to go out too. I don't want that. Okay, so basically what I'm trying to do is just select some faces here that will be the label. So let's do like that. I think that looks about right. Yeah, do we want one more? No, that's good. So I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate that. P, separated by selection. And now we have a label here. God, I keep getting tripped up with the X-ray because I made this material clear, so I think I'm in X-ray mode, but I'm not. So it has a glass material. Let's get rid of that. Let's make a new material. We'll call that one paper because I'm going to use that for the box, for the label. And, you know, honestly, I've probably just use it for the tube because that's what's going to be feeding into this texture data. So let's, before we do that though, let's take a look at the modifiers we got going on here. We've got a bevel, which, we're not going to need that. So let's get rid of that. And then we do want to keep the subdivide because we want it to line up perfectly with, what's going on here. So we need to make sure we have the same amount of vertices going around that curve. But that subdivide is giving us a little bit of an issue here with, it's trying to round out this edge and I don't want that. So what I can do is in edge select mode, select this whole loop around the outside. And then what we can do is there's a crease value right here. So we turn the crease all the way up to 1. And now it knows to use these creases. And the subdivide actually has this little option here. So you can turn off or turn on, whether or not it's using those creases. Now the next thing I'll do is just maybe scale that down a little bit to, I kind of want to match the, aspect ratio that we're going to have right here. Something like that I think looks good. And now for that material, to get that on there, I'm going to, with that principled shader select, I'm going to press Control T and then move this over. And what I'll do, and by the way, if you can't do Control T, make sure you have the Node Wrangler add-on enabled. You need it. It's good. Okay, I'll do it. I never do it. Edit preferences, search for it, blah, 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 the Wrangler. It's up there. If you've watched any of my tutorials and you don't have the Node Wrangler add-on enabled, you're fired. Get out of here. Why didn't you turn it on yet? Anyways, we've got that image texture. I already have it loaded in, so I'm just going to drop down right there. And it's on there, but we got no unwraps going on, so let's get unwraps going on. We're going to press U and unwrap that. So we have that. And then we're going to need to rotate it, obviously, so it's tall. And since this is just a plane, we really didn't have to do any, marking of seams or anything. It just kind of knows what to do. So let's scale this in. And then maybe, since this is kind of updating slowly, let's just turn our textures on. Oops, no, not rendered. A double render here. I'm going to slow my computer down to a crawl. Okay, so we got textures enabled there. So now I can see this needs to rotate around. And it'd be SX. -1, holding Control to do that, looking in the top left. And now we can move this down so it's right. And we just kind of want to center that up. See, it's kind of creeping in right here. I don't want that in there. Which is that? Yeah, you can kind of see it right there. So we need to scale this down just a little more. Or what we can also do is delete maybe one of these outer edges. But it looks like we're on there pretty good. Maybe move this down a little bit so. Just again, so it's nice and centered. GX. Very slight adjustments here and make it happen. And, yeah, that's the label. It's on there. Now, I do want to add one other thing, which is going to be a solidify modifier. Paper's pretty thin, but it does have some thickness. So the solidify, let's just make sure it's going the right way. Okay, so we got in, we got out. Good. Honestly, I think the thickness is fine. We use nice thick paper here at the Tendrous Cosmetic Company. Tendrous? Great name, Anastasia. I don't know where you came up with it. Let's shade it. Okay, so it is shaded smooth, but we have a weird shading happening on the edges. So let's go in here and turn on auto smooth, which is going to just, again, define what angle doesn't get the smooth shading. So that's good. And, maybe we do want it a little bit thinner. We're running short on money here at the Tendrous Cosmetics Company. Yeah, that looks good. We'll leave it at that. And giving it that thickness is really going to give us a nice little detail here. And you can see with the subdivide, we're kind of getting, it's kind of peeling off there. We don't want people thinking we don't glue our product on good enough. Watch this. I'm just going to scale it down the x-axis a little bit. Kind of make it go in a little bit so it's not peeling off. There. Just a little editing after the fact. Make sure it's in good shape. Okay. So that looks good. Let's do the same thing really quick right here. Actually, just to mix it up, let's go ahead and do the texturing here. So let's let's use the paper texture. I think that'll be fine. And then for this one, we're just going to do a project from view. Since this front part is mostly flat, there'd be a little stretching doing this, but I'm going to do U and project from view. Does that rhyme? U and view? Are you allowed to rhyme with letters? Do letters count as rhyming? I don't know. So I'm going to scale this in a little bit. I want to make sure again that this isn't overlapping. Okay, it looks like we're in pretty good shape. Maybe scaling just a little more. GY. Maybe bring it down. Maybe bring it up. Maybe make up your darn mind, Derek. Okay, that looks good. We'll leave it like that. Now, with this one, the white really wasn't a big deal, but with this one, the color is off again, so let's add in, the way I like to kind of boost that color is with some gamma. So let's just add in the gamma here, and I just want to watch this color. I want to match it a little bit more to, kind of like what my background color is. We're gonna make these colors a little more bold. See, I like 2.3. Looks good. Now, of course, since this is the same material, it's going to boost the colors down here a little bit too. But I think that's fine. When there are lighter colors like this where zoomed out, it's kind of hard to see, and not necessarily we need to see all this information. But I think it looks nice to kind of boost those colors a little bit, make it really stand out. Let that branding shine. And the other thing I'll do to make that branding shine is, well, I could literally make it shine with some roughness, but I'm going to, since we're not actually having to pay for these containers, we are just making them in 3D. I'm going to add a little bit of an emboss, I think is what it's called, What's the kind where it's in? I think that's embossed. And then where it's pushed out is like, I don't know, packaging terms. So I'm going to plug in, I guess I could use the one from that gamma. Let's just use the one from the car here. Plug that into the height. And you could, of course, make some more adjustments here with, if you were to use a color ramp to like, isolate different areas. Which, by the way, if you're really interested in that, check out my box tutorial, the 3D packaging one. We went, that whole tutorial is pretty much about, making some cool materials. There was more to it, but we covered it a lot more deeply there than we're going to cover here today. So now you have this invert option, which looks like that's making a bump in. I'll leave it so it's pumped out. And again, I have a pretty high resolution image here. So it's like 8K. So it's working for this pump map. But, sometimes if you had a smaller image, you'd start to lose some detail. You can see I'm starting to see some of the pixels there, but I think it looks pretty good. Let's leave it at that. And now we got that effect on the paper as well. So nice. Maybe we tone it down just a little bit. A little soft. Sometimes actually bringing the strength down makes it more visible. Cause sometimes it's too much with the strength at 1. So you can sometimes turn it down and it'll actually look a little bit better. So we got the face mask, we got the this, we got the that. Let's make another label here. Shift A, empty, cube. Oh, I did a circle, empty. Fine. I guess we'll use a circle empty. Yeah, sure. Control P. I don't know why. I don't know, whatever. We're using the circle empty. Parent that to the object. And then this is just 2 pieces, but let's go ahead. Cursor to selected, Shift A, empty, cube. Bring it up a little bit. Select these guys. Parent them to this guy. Control P, parent, cube transform. Okay, now we have our objects. Okay, so how do we want to set this up? Let's try to set it up sort of similar to how I had in the intro. So maybe we'll put this box kind of like right there, and then we'll put the cream on top of it. So where's our, oh yeah, that's the one. It's the darn circle. No wonder I couldn't find it. It's like a ridiculous shape. Okay, so it looks like we're going to need to make this a little bit bigger. Let's tab and enter scale, Shift Z. Make it so it's kind of got a little bit of a overlap there. Oh boy. Okay. We got problems. Let's, now look what we did. Cursor to selected. Okay, so since I duplicated from that object, our label didn't come with it. So those should have the same origin. Cursor selection to cursor now. Did that work? Did that work? Is it on the front there? I think I accidentally made that little offset. Maybe we can fix that by just rotating it in edit mode. About the 3D cursor, RZ. Yeah, so I messed that up a little bit, but that's going to be just fine. We'll leave that there. And now we need to make sure that is parented to our ridiculous circle empty. Why do you need a circle empty? Maybe it's like more representative if you don't actually need to like grab it. So now, okay, it's going to drive me crazy, this darn circle empty. I'm changing it. I'm freaking changing it. All right, go over here, change it to, hey, let's make a cone just so we can continue to be ridiculous. Okay, no, I don't like the cone. There, go with what you know. Make it a cube. Okay. And you could adjust the size so it's like bigger, easier to grab. Whatever. Okay, now I'm thinking about, I'm going to make this one a little smaller. Make this one a little smaller. I want to keep it nice and tight so you know what you're grabbing. Okay, so I got that there. That looks good. Let's make another, maybe just kind of like a little bit of a taller platform. So let's Shift D. That one's going to go maybe right there. Shift Z up. We need to change our scaling point to the medium point. You make that like we're going to put the tube on that one. So let's maybe move that over here. And I duplicated it so it came with the bevel modifier, which I like. Maybe bounce that up a little bit. Just trying to create sort of an interesting composition here. And obviously, you would probably want to spend a lot of time on this part actually, just making sure the composition looks nice. But in my case, and for your time's sake, I am just going to try to duplicate what I had on that kind of initial scene, which by the way, I also shared on my Instagram, which also, by the way, how far are we into the tutorial? And I forgot to tell you guys to like it and thumbs up it. If you're still watching at this point, please give me the thumbs up. So I'm just creating these little platforms here. I had this part kind of like sticking out in my other one. In my, initial, do I like that? Yeah, we'll do that. We like that. Now we do then need to move this up a little bit. So let's add GZ just till it's sitting right there on the edge. Up. Right there. That looks good. Okay, and then let's just kind of center it, move it over a little bit. And maybe this whole thing can actually slide over a tad. Something like that looks pretty good. And then the box, we'll put it over here where it belongs, out of the way. Yeah, your Mr. Box. And then another very small realism thing you can do. Just adjust these rotations. Oh, shoot. A very little bit. Just as if a real human placed them. I just didn't get everything perfectly centered. Gives it a little bit of a nice detail. And this box, we have a bevel there, so it's kind of off the ground a little bit. We could turn on some of these options to see where it is a little better. But let's just kind of pick it up off the ground a little bit. Sometimes those boxes don't end up perfectly flat on the bottom, so there's kind of a little bit of a gap right there. But that looks pretty good. Let's save that. And now that's pretty much it for the tutorial. What I'm gonna do now is just, since this is the stuff that really makes it better, I'm going to show you a few more tricks. Okay, so for one, I like having a big fat focal length for this. I'm going to use 120, and that just gets us kind of closer to like orthographic, if you will. The longer that camera focal length is. So that looks good like that. You could add some depth of field too. The last thing I'll do, I'm going to show you, not the last thing, but almost last thing. We're almost done here, guys. The last thing is, okay, so there's these composition guides. You can turn on like center, and then I also like to turn on thirds. So now we have these guides to see what the composition is. So, maybe you want to align that little nipple thing, whatever it's called, little pipette with like the very center. And then maybe, you're real artsy and you line that edge up with the center too. And then maybe you want this all but kind of come in a little bit more, tighten up. So maybe like this edge lines up. Anyways, this is stuff that kind of takes some time. And I think with mine, I moved it over. So it was kind of over here. That would be as if you wanted to, if you wanted to like maybe put some text over there, like coming this fall, pumpkin and honey, cinnamon and honey, fall flavors. You could do that. So this face mask color, maybe we make this separate. Maybe we do want that to be its own material. Let's just duplicate it. We'll call it plastic. We got paper. We got plastic. Maybe that gamma gets a little extra boost. Yeah, those colors are a little nicer. And maybe we don't want maybe we'll invert the bump on that one, just to be a little different. And we could like turn the roughness down a little bit, make it a little shinier. You can make it super shiny. Like, look, we got some cool reflections going on there now. Look at that. You could make it super shiny. I don't quite like it like that. So let's give it a little shine, a little more than paper has. Put it something like that. That's looking good. Now the last thing you'd want to do is just do a little bit of more editing with your lighting to get some kind of nice reflections going on, nice shapes. And I'm just going to kind of move this over, move it up. Maybe we give that guy some more power. Again, don't worry about saving electricity. This isn't the real world. Give that some more power. Maybe we pull this up a little bit. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Give our whole scene some more light. Give that some more power. Something like that, I think. Looking pretty good. Maybe this whole thing can kind of come forward so we get that. No. Yeah, see what further I pull it back, the less in the light it is, and so that back wall gets a little more shadow. It's kind of creating like a natural vignette for us. It's a little too dark over there though, so maybe let's change this one to an ellipse, and let's save, because this is again where it crashes. And then it didn't crash. Nice. Let's kind of move this back a little bit so it's not got so much light on the front. And these are just, in my case, I'm just really just playing around here, but you can go read some lighting books or something if you want to. And then you'll have more knowledge. Books are good. Maybe give that more power since I pulled it further away. And I don't like that little dark spot I'm getting there in that corner. You gotta pull this all just up a little bit. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Okay. So it's bother me. Don't worry about it. It's good. I think we're going to leave it at that, folks and fellows and ladies and gentlemen, and hopefully now cosmetic beauty experts. Did we forget anything? I don't think we did. I think that's pretty much it. Go in, adjust your colors, play with these things a little bit more. Maybe you want that more saturated. Maybe you want it a little bit darker so that the product pops a little more. Do whatever you want. Play with it as much as you like. I really hope you watched the whole thing. I really hope you enjoyed watching.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and comment and subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon for more videos.